Hello folks, it's the Percy Chaser again. Welcome to another one of my videos. We're in Riby Square in Grimsby. It's quite early on a Sunday morning in June 2022. And this is hopefully going to be the first of a series of videos looking at the former tram and trolleybus routes in Grimsby. Today we're going to be looking at the Hainton Avenue route. So this one opened as a horse tramway in 1881. In 1901 it was converted into an electric tramway, and then by the 1920s the track needed replacing, so they decided it wasn't economic to do that, and it was converted into a trolleybus route. For anyone who doesn't know what a trolleybus is, because it's quite a common question nowadays, what is a trolleybus? It's basically an electrically powered bus that picks up its power from an overhead wire in the same way as a tram or an electric train would do, rather than having a battery or anything like that on board the bus. So yeah, it was the first route in Grimsby to be abandoned as a tramway, and so the trolleybuses began running on the 1st of October 1926. So this one didn't serve the town centre as we would know it now. Just looking at an Optare Solar there on rail replacement duty. Grimsby actually had two town centres back in the day. There's the one that's there now, which was the original one. It's known locally as Top Town. And then there was Freeman Street, which is directly ahead of me, which is known as Bottom Town. And Freeman Street, when the docks began to really expand, was where the dock workers and the fishermen all lived in that area, and they sort of set up their own town centre to serve trips into the main one. So this route served Freeman Street and not the town centre that we all think of today. So the trolleybuses came into Riby Square. They came out of Freeman Street directly towards us, and then they did a U-turn, turned round and faced back the way we're facing. The stop for them was about here, where I'm just approaching. The main road in front of us, the A180, that was the site of the main tram and later trolleybus route in Grimsby, from Cleethorpes to Grimsby. Left is to Cleethorpes, right is to Grimsby. So the trolleybuses on the Hainton Avenue service came straight across it at right angles, and as I say, they sort of turned round in Riby Square here, and the loading point for them was roughly here. When the motorbuses replaced them, which they did in 1955, this became a bus terminus, and it still was into the 1990s. I can remember passing in a car in about 1990 and seeing around 3 GCT double-deckers standing here, and it was still in use into the 90s. Unfortunately, nowadays only one bus route actually comes into the square. I believe the number 2 bus just turns round and goes back and stops on the main road. So we're going to make our way down the Hainton Avenue route now. Please don't expect loads of relics of the tramway area, because there aren't. You will see the odd couple of bits, but there's not much left. It's just more for interest really, and to see what was there. I've got Alfie the border collie with me again, so we'll set off. So now on Freeman Street, looking back towards Riby Square. This was where the trams terminated. They didn't go across into Riby Square, they terminated here in the middle of the road. This was a single track tramway with passing loops so that trams could pass each other, but there were 2 tracks here, so you could have one tram arriving and unloading whilst another one set off. There was a connection between here and the main tramway, but it turned off to the right, and it was only for trams going to and from the depot. The horse tram depot was in Park Street, which is towards Cleethorpes, about half a mile up the main road there, and the electric tram depot at the time that trams were working on this line was in Cleethorpes itself, in Pelham Road, so there was a connection round to the right. Trams didn't use it in service, they only ran to and from the depot there. The service trams terminated here, and similarly in trolleybus days there was a connection, I think to the left, to get the trolleybuses back to the depot, which was in Victoria Street in Grimsby, but again it wasn't used in service, they only used it to travel to and from the depot. So we're looking down Freeman Street towards the direction we're going in. So the tramway became single track very, very quickly about here, and I'll show you where the passing loops were as we go along. So the passing loops on this line weren't very well distributed. This was the first one at Church Street, which is just to the right where the Wilco's store is on the corner. As you can see, if I turn round, we are a stone's throw from where we started at Riby Square. So yeah, not very well distributed at all. You can just about see Iceland in the middle distance there, which I'll show you when we get close. So that was the second passing loop at Garibaldi Street. So again, this was the second passing loop. We're coming to Garibaldi Street. See the Freeman Street covered market still on the other side of the road there. A relic from the days when it was like a second town centre, as we said earlier on. So this was the site of the next passing loop, Wood Street, with the Angel pub on the corner. So we've got a reasonable distance from the last one, a bit more spaced out. If you can see, there's a yellow bollard in the middle of the road, up in the distance. That's the site of the next one, where we're heading to now. So here at Hainton Square, this is Eleanor Street off to the left, which was the site of the next passing loop. Before we go on, I need to mention Edward Heanage, who was the MP for Grimsby at the end of the 19th century. He was also what we would now call a property developer on quite a massive scale. So basically more or less everything we're going to see in the rest of this video was built by Edward Heanage. If we look down Eleanor Street, off to the right was the area of land that he owned, and all the way down as far as you can see. He also donated the land for the People's Park to Grimsby Corporation. They built the park on it. But yeah, he owned quite a lot of land. All the streets around were named after people or places to do with the family. So Hainton Avenue, which was Hainton Street originally, but he renamed it Hainton Avenue to make it sound a bit more well-to-do. Hainton is a village about 25 miles away from Grimsby, where the family had their seat at the country house. Eleanor, which Eleanor Street is named after, was Edward's wife. She was Eleanor Hare of Tasborough, was a full title, and there's also a Hare Street and a Tasborough Street, which we'll see as we go along. So yeah, just needed to mention Edward Heanage before we continue. So let's carry on down Hainton Avenue. So yeah, we're just on Hainton Ave, just a quick look along. You can see there's still shops at this end of it, and then there's some sort of working class terraces. We look back round, you can see down Freeman Street back towards where we've come from at Riby Square. So this was the site of the next passing loop at 6 Hill Street. So the tramway, as we said, single track with passing loops. Just about to see Hainton Square up in the far distance. The car's just heading towards it now, the one that's moving. But yeah, this was the next passing loop. So this was the site of the next passing loop at Catherine Street. So Catherine, presumably another relative of Edward Heanage. And we're not a million miles away from the terminus of the tram route now. It was only a short route. So we're very close to the terminus now of the tram line. It went back into double line here at Tasborough Street. And you can see on the corner of Tasborough Street there's this pole, which appears to be a trolleybus wire support pole. I'm guessing it supported one end of a span wire because it's too far back from the road to have been a bracket arm. But yeah, it's an unusual survivor, one of only two in the Grimsby and Cleethorpes area that I'm aware of. So as we say, it was double track from here. We're just walking along a little bit. You can see the area is a little bit more exclusive than it was further back. Some bigger houses now divided into flats. And this was a tram terminus. It just went back into a single line just for the very end bit. It just ended here, just before this road junction with the traffic lights where Wellown Road goes across. In the days of the tram, this was about as far as development had got, but by the time they converted it to a trolleybus in the 1920s, the development had gone further down, so the trolleybuses continued along Hainton Avenue in the direction we're going. See the church on the corner there that's long since ceased to be a church. It was later the Wellhome Galleries Museum and Gallery, but it's now closed and up for sale, so hopefully the new owner will convert it into something and it'll stay. The building as it is, it won't be demolished. But as I said, the trolleybuses continued down Hainton Avenue a bit further. We're going to do that in a minute, but I'm going to deviate first of all just to show you how close to another one of the tram routes we are. So I've walked up Wellown Road slightly to the junction with Peaks Parkway, which is going across left to right here. That was built on the site of the old East Lincolnshire Railway, which ran from Grimsby down to Louth and Boston. In railway days, this was a level crossing. Wellown Road crossed it on the level, and the house across from us here is the old crossing keeper's house, dated 1847. So that house is where the crossing keeper who opened and closed the gates would have lived. As you can see, we're just not very far at all from where we've just been, the tram terminus on Hainton Avenue. So if I just turn back around, you can see the traffic lights at the junction of Hainton Avenue. So we're not very far at all from there. And if I just look down Welland Road the other way towards the People's Park, you can see the yellow bollards in the middle of the road there. Where they are was the terminus of the People's Park tram line, so not very far at all from the Hainton Avenue one. Again, you can just see the traffic lights behind me for the Hainton Ave. It was proposed to link the two tramways together to form a circular service, and they actually got authorisation to build it, but the Great Northern Railway, who ran the railway line across here, objected to the tramway crossing their railway, so it was never built, although they were so close together they never actually built the connection. So we're back on Hainton Avenue. We're just heading down the trolleybus extension towards the trolleybus terminus. So if I turn back around, you can see where the tramway terminus was, just beyond the traffic lights there. As I said, the trolleybuses, when it was converted to a trolleybus route, were extended further along Hainton Avenue to serve the new development that had sprung up in the meantime. The level crossing site that we've just been at as well, there was a halt there, which I forgot to mention. It was built in 1905. It was called Hainton Street Halt. As I mentioned earlier, Hainton Avenue was known as Hainton Street when it was first built. Shortly after the halt opened in 1905, the road was renamed to Hainton Avenue, but the halt never was. It closed temporarily in the Second World War, but it reopened again in 1940, and it finally closed in 1961. It might seem a bit odd that a halt survived for that long, so close to a tram and later trolleybus and motorbus route. But the reason was the trains went into Grimsby town station, which was in top town, whereas of course the trams, trolleybuses, etc. served at bottom town. And just a feature of some of the bus stops in this area of Grimsby, you can see on the floor there's a bus stop marking on the pavement. In some cases the bus stops have been moved. In a lot of cases further up, the pavements have been built upwards to make it easy for wheelchair users to get on the bus, and they've covered over those. But as I say, in some cases the bus stops moved from the original location, so you'll find places where it still says bus stop on the pavement, but the bus stop's further down. There's also a street not far from here where the buses haven't run for decades, so there's no bus stop poles or flags, but there's still the marking on the pavement in that street as well. So we're just coming up to the junction with Algernon Street, which this is the end of Heanage land. This is the extent of his developments. So all that way we've come from Eleanor Street just shows you how prolific he was. You can see the terraced houses down there that he would have developed. And so a very short distance beyond Algernon Street we're approaching the terminus of the trolleybus. There's the corner of Algernon Street just there. It was proposed to turn them round, the trolleybuses at this end, by running them left into Rialto Avenue here, that we're just approaching. They would have then turned right into Recto Avenue, the first street you can see there, and then done a right onto Wheelsby Road, which is just at the end here, and right back into Hainton Avenue. The residents of Rialto Avenue objected to the prospect of trolleybuses passing their house every few minutes, so that bit was never built. Instead, the trolleybuses carried on straight down here, and they terminated at this bus stop that we're just approaching now. So any remaining passengers would get off the bus just along here. And then the road was widened to enable the trolleybuses to do a U-turn. The curb on the opposite side was moved back, as you can see. The traffic island that you can see there wasn't there, so the trolleybuses just came down, did a big U-turn round. It would still have been quite tight, but they turned round and then they went back to the bus stop on the opposite side of the road there, and they would have picked up the passengers for the return journey to Riby Square. And so here we are at the junction with Wheelsby Road. The Miller and Carter steakhouse you can see opposite used to be the Hainton Hotel, which was advertised as the terminus of the trolleybuses If I pan round, you can see Whalesby Road heading off there. Just round that corner there was originally a level crossing over the railway again, and another halt, Whalesby Road halt. That one closed in 1940 temporarily and didn't reopen. It was officially closed in 1952, so it didn't survive as long as the one further up. Again, if we pan round, you can see Hainton Avenue and the route back to Riby Square just behind me. And if we go around the other way, you can see Recto Avenue just coming out there. So if the one-way loop had been built, the trolleybuses would have come out of that turning right into Whalesby Road here, and then right back round into Hainton Avenue. So as I say, I hope that I'll do the other routes in due course. I think the next one will be the People's Park route, and then into Grimsby town centre. So if you've enjoyed this one, please look out for those. Please check out my other videos. There is a bit on there about the Grimsby and Immingham Electric Railway as well. I've done the bits of that in Grimsby in various instalments. Please feel free to like and subscribe. So I'm off home now to get Alfie a good drink of water and a rest on his dog bed. Well, I'm going to have a brew, I think. So thanks for joining me. Take care, see you again soon. Bye.